Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Dramaturgy Podcast. How are you guys doing? I hope you're having a great week so far. I am having a really shitty week because it's just so hot where I am, right? I live in the East Coast and I don't know, like it's so hot here. And when I say East Coast, I mean East Coast of the United States. And it's so hot here and I don't know, I don't know what to do. And it's just so humid and I hate it, right? I hate heat. I hate the summer in theory. Like I just hate it so much just because it's so hot. And so I've been battling with that all week. But yeah, I hope you guys are having a better week than I have been so far. And in this episode, I am going to be covering a Thai BL, and it's the Thai BL KinnPorsche. So the choice of what Thai BL to cover was between KinnPorsche and I Told Sunset About You, because those are like two BLs that I really like for different reasons. I will say that I feel like I Told Sunset About You a little bit more, but KinnPorsche is equally entertaining in like a different way, right? I feel like I Told Sunset About You requires a more in-depth review than I can give at the moment, and so I'm gonna put that on a back burner for later. And so KinnPorsche is the one that is gonna be, I think, my first Thai BL review. I don't think I've ever done a Thai BL review from what I can. I don't think I have. So this will be my first one, and I'm actually very excited. So for those who don't know, KinnPorsche is a 2022 Thai BL drama that basically follows like Kinn and Porsche. And this is something I have to say, just pause. This is something I have to say about like Thai BLs in general, is that like they always use the names of the characters as the title of the drama, right? This happens a lot. But anyways, back to the synopsis. Basically, KinnPorsche is about this mafia family and, this one boy that is basically drawn into this family, right? Because he saves the life of like the future mafia head. Porsche is this guy that has lost his parents and he's basically the legal guardian of his younger brother Porsche, right? Again, pause. I find it funny that like their names are Porsche and Porsche. I don't know, there's just something about it. I think it's like the difference between their name is like a different accent on the E at the end of their name, and it's just hilarious to me. But yeah, basically he's legal guardian of his younger brother Porsche, who is still like in high school, I think, and he's about to enter like college, right? So he's trying to make ends meet and struggling in a lot of ways. In comes Kinn, right? He ends up meeting Kinn, who was, I guess, being chased by these mafia people, right? And he saves his life. And it is from this that he is, I guess, brought in to be, part of the bodyguard of this mafia family that Kinn is part of, right? And so that is basically the synopsis, and basically our story is following them as, Porsche kind of figures out this world, right, that he's not really part of, right? So if you again listen to my previous like episode where I talk about like this like Thai BL world, right, you would have heard me say that I was present when this drama aired in 2022, right? I could have watched it when it aired, and I should have, because if there's one thing that I can say about KinnPorsche is that you have to be there, right? In that it was so popular that unless you were there at the moment and saw the like fervor, saw the like anticipation, the discussion, just like this explosion of popularity that this drama was having back then, right? You would not understand. I even think that this drama has like the highest number of comments of any drama ever on MyDramaList, which is saying something. I don't know if that's still true, but back then in 2022, which is just like 2 years ago, right? Or at least as of the time of this recording, it was 2 years ago. This drama was like so popular, right? And so I really could have watched it when it came out, but back then I wasn't really into Thai BLs. I tried a few by then and I just did not like them, and so this one just passed me by. But I remember it being popular. I remember people talking about it. Like, that's how much people love this drama, right? And honestly, now that I have watched it, I can understand where that fervor, that love comes from, right? Like, I imagine that if I was watching this in 2022, given that like a lot of things have changed in the Thai BL world, I think between 2022 and like the present day, right? So I think when this drama was coming out, it was like this game changer kind of thing, right? It was high budget, like in the way that like Thai BLs weren't before. And so there's a lot of things that like made this such a popular like drama, right? But anyways, moving on. Now that I have finally watched this drama, me as a latecomer now, right, I can talk about things I like about this drama, and why I think that it's actually a good drama for all its issues and problems. One thing I would say is that, like, first of all, you should never use like your regular tinted glasses to look at this kind of drama, because at the end of the day, this is a drama about a mafia family. The way they do things is never going to be like correct. I mean, they literally sell drugs, like, or at least that's one of the things they do, because again, that's what mafia families do, right? So like, these are not good people, right? And so you should never look at it from the perspective of like, oh, someone is a red flag, someone is like really terrible, because honestly, everybody's terrible at the same degree, I feel like, because the world they are in is just that kind of world, right? So that's one thing to note, and that's kind of how I went in looking at this drama, or I went in watching this drama, right? That nobody is a good person in this. Maybe Porsche and Porsche, right? Because they are kind of outsiders in this world, right? But everybody else is just like kind of to a degree a terrible person, if you have to be honest with yourself, right? I mean, they humanize like terrible people, right? Kinn, for example, you find him as time goes on like to be this like loving, bubbly person, as opposed to how you're immediately introduced to him, right? And so, you know, they try and make bad people good, and so that's why, you know, you have to like kind of just suspend belief in a lot of ways. But yeah, just going on things that I like, the very first thing I will mention that makes this drama really worth watching is the character of Porsche. He is our main character. He is the one that, you know, kind of introduces us to this world of this like mafia people, and it is through him that we learn a lot of things, right? And I will say that Porsche is really, really relatable in a lot of ways, and Apple that is playing Porsche is also really, really good at doing this, right? And so, I mean, Thai VR world, I struggle a lot because a lot of like actors can't act. They don't try hard enough, I feel like. But in this drama, I would say that a lot of the characters, or most of the characters, try well, right? They do things well, they act well, and so it shows. So Apple that's playing like Porsche in this is very, very good at acting, right? And so a lot of things he does are funny. The way he delivers his lines are funny, and I really, really appreciate that, right? The same can be said for Mal that plays Kinn. He's not as good, I think, to me as Porsche, but I would say that he is not to the point where like it ruins anything, right? So he is good enough. He's better than most, right? It's better than average, right? It's better than the average Thai Bill actor, I would say. But again, it's not on, like, I would say, Apple's level, and that's fine. No, not all of them need to be like fantastic actors, right? I will say that Mal is very, very handsome. I think he's one of the most handsome like actors from Thailand that I have ever seen, right? And I've seen a lot of them, right? There are a few of them that are like that I'm like, oh my god, this person has a beautiful face, has a like beautiful physique, right? There's something about his eyebrows that just works for me, even though I never thought I would be the one to say that. But there's something about the way it looks, like it's bushy and everything, but like he works for him, right? And he just has this like air to him that I really like. So right off the bat, the two like cast like leads are very, very good, right? And so that is the, I would say, element that makes this drama really worth watching, right? I mean, they have budget, which is good. Like, you can see the budget, right? But yeah, those two I think are like the main meat of this, and they are like, their scenes are electrifying and they are very, very good, right? Then moving on to other things that makes this drama just amazing. I mean, there are characters in this that are just so well written, and they just like pull in and make this drama perfect. I would say like my favorite character, one of my favorite characters in this, is the character of Kinn's brother Tankun, who is like the eldest brother, right? And he is just a comedian, right? It's a little kind of stereotypical to make him, you know, that queer character that's like bubbly and, you know, whatever, but he does it so well that like I found myself laughing along with everything he was doing. He was literally the like center of attention whenever he was on screen, right? And I just love that. And even though he was like that person that, you know, seemingly flighty, he was actually like very deep, and like he saw things well. I don't know how to explain it, but like even though he seemed like he wasn't like interested, and, you know, his mind wasn't really there all the time, he actually still showed moments of just genius. In fact, a lot of the times he's the one that's the voice of reason in a lot of ways. So I really like his character. His character was well done. And it made the drama just so interesting to watch, right? And one thing I will say, coming back to like Kinn and Tankun and Kim, the youngest brother, I like the fact that they had a good relationship amongst the brothers. I even have to say that I like the fact that like in the major family, all of them had good relationships. Like the issue was never internal, if that makes sense, right? It was never about like internal conflict. It was always about external conflict, usually with the minor family, right? And I love that because I never wanted it to like be that one of the brothers wanted to like usurp the other brother. I mean, think about it, like Tankun is the oldest, but he's not the one that is like in line to lead. It's Kinn, and he's fine with it, right? They have this tacit understanding amongst one another. Kim is technically smarter than Kinn. He sees things more clearer and he has a more calculative mind, just like his father Korn, right? But he's still okay with taking a like backseat to his older brother Kinn, right? Even though Kinn in some ways is not the perfect mafia guy, right? That's really Kim. But you can see that they have that support of one another, and if there's ever a scenario, right, where they need help, the others are there, right? And so like Kim, for example, like the whole point of him, trying to investigate Porsche and Porsche's family was trying to figure out if they were going to be a threat to his brother and his family, right? And it's never about the fact that he wants to kind of take down his brother or anything. He wants to make sure that he's going to be okay with these people around him, and I really, really like that, right? The same can also be said for the bodyguards. They had like 1 billion of them, and I can't remember a lot of them's name. I can remember Pete, Paul, and I think his name was Gus. But like I'm struggling here. And there was one that had like an Australian accent, right? So there are a few of them, but yeah, I can't really remember all of them's name because there were so many of them. But anyways, again, the bodyguards really added spice, added that extra element that made this drama really good. They were there for comic relief for the most part, but it seemed that when there was like need for them to like get their game on, they were able to do so. They all had their little moments, and I was really happy about that. I mean, there were moments of incompetence that not just with like the bodyguard, but with like Kinn himself, who is supposed to be the mafia leader. And this is again why I say Kim is a better ruler. Like he is very decisive and knows how to end things when they need to end, right? And so in a way, like the moments where Kinn, for example, forgetting that he sent Pete to the minor family, right? I mean, Pete was being tortured in that house, right? And like Kinn was basically just enjoying himself with Porsche, right? And so the moments like that was like dude, you're supposed to be able to like remember these things. And it's not like Pete is like just anybody. Pete is like the head bodyguard of Tankun and was the head bodyguard of Kinn at some point. So again, Pete is very high up, right? And somehow he forgot completely. And not just him, everybody forgot. Even though Pete had said, he was going to his grandma's place. Like no one ever thought to check. You would think they would be more like, nitpicky and just cautious and suspicious, but no one even like thought about it until like Tanko mentions it, which was like an issue for me for a second there, because Kinn kept having that moment where he would be like, what am I forgetting? He felt like he was forgetting something, and he would like think to himself, what am I forgetting? But he would never arrive to the correct conclusion, right? At some point he would just be distracted by Porsche again, and so that was an issue I had. But generally, like, everybody was okay. The bodyguards too were okay, and I really liked that aspect, just like the general vibe of the major house. Another aspect about this drama, again, the relationship between Porsche and Kinn, chemistry was beautiful, right? Like the scenes were given, right? Like you guys know what I'm talking about. It was so well done. Some of my favorite parts are like, and again, this drama is one that like you gotta suspend like your ick, right? Like you gotta suspend that ick like feeling you would get normally watching something. And so one of my favorite parts, Porsche has been like drugged somehow, right? And he like puked all over and like when Kinn kisses him, like Kinn has this moment of like, this is kind of gross. Like you can see it in his face that he felt like that was gross, but like he was so horny that he didn't even like he didn't care to like stop, right? And so that was one moment I remember dying laughing because like I like the fact that they acknowledge that it's icky and gross that he's kissing someone that just puked all over, right? But again, it shows you like the love level or like the just how horny he was for Porsche and like into him, and he desired like Porsche, right? And so I really like that scene. And that thing is, I like that episode where they are like missing in the wilderness and they just have that whole episode is just them alone, and it was beautiful and I loved it. And there are moments like that I just it's so well done. And that moment that I really like is when Vegas, is assaulting Porsche in the club, right? And Kinn comes in and saves Porsche, right? But he also insults Porsche in that moment, and Porsche gives him like the hottest slap I've ever heard. It was really, really good. Like usually when they slap in like dramas, they always do like a weak job, but like you heard the sound, it was crisp. And like as he slaps Kinn, he like says that he regrets loving him, right? And he's about to walk away, and like Kinn immediately regrets what he's done, and he like tries to hold on to him, or he does hold on to him. And that scene was beautiful, very poignant, very like just there are moments that I felt like I was intruding in a way. And I don't know how these two actors like Mal and Apple are able to like convey that, and I don't know, it's just so well done. And I have to give it up that like acting wise this drama was pleasant to watch, because honestly, like if you were going to ask me what's my main reason for not watching Thai BLs, it would be the acting, right? I can do with like cheap budgets. I've watched dramas with less budget than Thai BLs, right? I can do bad budget. I can do like one camera only kind of budget. But the one thing I cannot do or deal with is bad acting. And Thai BLs are notorious for this. It is by the grace of God I'm able to watch half of the like BLs I watched at this point, because honestly that is something that puts me out immediately. Bad acting, in the sense that Thai BLs are very interesting in that they do this specifically. I've never seen like another region, be it East Asia or Southeast Asia region, do this. But like a lot of the times, right? And you guys tell me if I'm like just in my head or if you notice this as well. A lot of the times when these actors are like saying their lines, basically, right, you can kind of see them thinking about it. And not just that, when they are like trying to say their lines, right, between people, you see this pause that they have between each person, each character that's gonna talk, right? And it's the weirdest thing in that like you can kind of see that moment of processing that they are doing, and it's very, very irritating. Like I've never seen that in any other like region. In that like when people say lines, sometimes lines overlap. They like the way they communicate is very like tic-tac, like it's very quick, right? You don't ever notice that like people are acting to act, right? But in like Thai BLs, you can kind of almost feel it, right? There's almost like this 1 second pause between each person saying their lines, and it's really, really bad, and I dislike it so much. And that's one thing that up to today most Thai BLs have, right? There are very few Thai BLs that don't have this, right? And I mean, we can go into another video about like acting and what I think are like good actors. But in general, a lot of them do this, and it really grates my nerves. But thankfully, like KinnPorsche doesn't do that for the most part. I mean, there are moments here and there, but generally everybody is meshing well together, right? And so there's no pause between lines. There's no like awkward stares either, right? That's another thing they do a lot. They just stare at one another, and it's weird. But again, not to get into like my dislikes. Another thing that makes this drama excellent, just amazing, and this is one thing that is not popular for a lot of people, but for me, I really like it, is the character of Kim. I think Kim is actually my favorite character, because there's something about a character that can be more, but chooses not to be. Right, there's something about a character that could take over and usurp his brother's like place, but chooses not to be. You see moments of this where Kim is talking to his dad or talking to his dad's like bodyguard, right? And you sense that there's more to what they're talking about. And there's something about Kim in that, unlike Kinn, that it seems like he's always like looking for his father's approval, Kim doesn't give a shit. He doesn't seem to care, and he's really just there for his family to make sure that even his own father is not trying to hurt his like family, right? His brothers, right? And so I really, really like that. His relationship with Porsche is touchy for me for a lot of reasons. They're okay, but they are not like spectacular, and I think that's fine. I appreciate the fact that Porsche really liked him, but I mean, I feel like he never really went anywhere, and I'm okay with that fact, right? I will say that I really like that scene at the end, where Kim is protecting Porsche without him knowing, right? I think I would say that's my favorite action scene, right, in the bar, where Kim is basically fighting all these people and Porsche is playing a game, right? Because I don't know, it was just very, very well done. So that is another like scene I really, really like. But yeah, that's it on Kim. Another thing I would say that makes this drama really good and just interesting, other than the comedy from like Tankun and all the other characters, because again, they are very funny, I would say that is Vegas and Pete. For different reasons, I would say, and maybe not the reasons that a lot of people, I mean, I guess it's still the same reason a lot of people like them, in that they are very unconventional. And I wish they had like explored that relationship more. I was of the opinion that Pete fell in love too quickly, or should I say surrendered to his love for Vegas too quickly. So Vegas is the kind of person that he is part of the minor family but really wants to be part of the major family, in that like he wants to have what Kinn has for the most part. Vegas is also interesting that, like Kim, he's another person I would say that belongs in this world. He embodies what it means to be a mafia like leader. Is soft when he needs to be soft, and he's like tough and mean, cruel when he needs to be. Even I'll say more than Kim. The only issue with Vegas is that he's a little emotional, in that Kim is like very cold-hearted, right? And so that's really the difference. But still, I think other than his like daddy issues, he's actually a bona fide mafia kind of person, right? And you see it with his relationship with the rest of like the bodyguards in the minor family, right? He has kind of built this world of like, there's hierarchy, but there's also like playfulness, right? Everybody eats together and stuff like that, right? It's a different take versus like the major family, right? That's very strict. But again, it works for Vegas, and he has built that respect amongst his own people, right? One of the major issues I have, when Pete and Vegas finally have their moments of, just, I don't know what you call it inside that cage, just sadism, and just it was a lot, right? It was a lot when they finally have that moment together, right? Because they really don't talk or really show any interest in one another before that like torture episode, right? When they finally have that, and Vegas basically breaks Pete, and after a while also like Pete kind of like gets one over on Vegas, in that like Vegas comes to care for him, and when Pete is trying to kill himself, Vegas is really begging him not to, right? Even though so like there was this switch in power from like Vegas to Pete, right, in that Vegas went from threatening him and torturing him to begging Pete that he should not leave him and stuff like that. And so when Pete finally leaves and they meet again, again all their scenes are very poignant, and you can see that he has affected Pete on like this fundamental level, that he will never really be the same again. But also Vegas in a way. Again, one thing I would say is that I wish they had shown us more of that relationship, or should I say Vegas's psyche, and how he kind of falls in love with Pete. Yes, I mean, Pete is one person that really was there when he went through that breakdown with his dad, and just generally, right? But like, I wish they had shown more of that so that I could kind of understand why he fell in love with Pete. As time progresses, and you see Vegas in the final scene that wants to like kill himself, and Pete confessing his love and telling the major family that he has to go with Vegas because he loves him and everything. Again, I wish that they had shown more of like Pete's psyche before that or leading up to that. They showed it a bit, but not really. Ideally, so this is how I would have wanted it to play out, right? So basically, I would have wanted it for Vegas to have some sort of interest in Pete, even before the torture comes in, right? In that, like, previous episodes, yeah, you see them talk once in a while, but you don't really see any sign that this relationship between the two of them is coming. Given that, I feel like Pete is a lot like Vegas. Like, if you remember that scene where they are torturing somebody in this dungeon, right, and the person isn't talking, and so Vegas is like, let me take over, and he pulls out his torture weapons, right, and he basically gets that person to talk by torturing him. The scene pans to the bodyguards, like the major family's bodyguards, and you see the disgust in all their faces except Pete. That was, I would say, the only moment that signified that they are similar in some way, because Pete was the only one that was not scared or disgusted by what Vegas was doing. And so I would have liked for there to be moments like that in some way where Vegas could recognize that Pete was special, right, in some way, right? Because again, we don't know Pete is into BDSM until Vegas is basically torturing him, right? And you then see that he has a very high pain threshold. If we had seen moments like that, even just a little bit of interest in Pete, I would have liked that. Because otherwise, the whole time it was just Vegas being interested in Porsche, that when he finally switched to Pete, I wasn't buying it as much as I could have. That's one thing, right, that they could have shown more of. Just like this interest in Pete, even if he also had an interest in Porsche, right? That way, when they finally get into that torture chamber and everything, you can kind of have them talk about the fact that Vegas had been noticing that Pete was also different, right? But everything just came as a surprise, right? And then also, I think when they finally did leave the room and Pete is kind of thinking this through, and he's traumatized and everything. I wish they had shown, because again, this relationship is very fraught with this is not okay, right? His feelings for Vegas are not okay. I wish they had acknowledged that Pete knew his feelings were not okay. He knew that what Vegas did to him was not okay, but he still wanted Vegas, right? If that makes sense, right? So to contrast it, or to give you an example, the day following Kinn and Porsche's first time together, right, you see Porsche go through this torture training, right, with the bodyguards, right, on Kinn's orders, and then later we see him in the bathroom taking a smoke, right, and you see him kind of almost relive what has gone through with Kinn the night before, right, in a very weird way. You can tell that his mind is almost fragmented in the way he's thinking about that, right, until Pete comes and snaps him out of it, right? So that's a moment where you can see him being conflicted. Obviously, he really disliked the fact that he has slept with Kinn, or the fact that Kinn kind of had sex with him when he was drugged, but you can also see this conflicting feeling of the fact that he obviously enjoyed it as well, right? And this is something that he's struggling with, right? And so something like that would have been what I would have wanted to see with Pete, right? I feel like they didn't give me that to that level where I could kind of see Pete struggle with liking Vegas, right? And then just coming to the conclusion that he likes what he likes, right? And he was kind of okay with what happened. Not okay, but he had developed Stockholm syndrome basically for his captor. And so yeah, that's something I would have liked to see. And then finally, coming from Vegas's point, I'd like to see Vegas kind of think that thing through when it comes to Pete, and to also see him fall in love. In that, I feel like they don't show me enough that is there. And so I would have liked to see that as well. Him thinking about maybe the night they had together, that's twisted, I know, but at least I would have liked to see something like that. And see him kind of be unable to control his desire for Pete, if that makes sense, right? So yeah, all that I would have liked to see as well. But they couldn't do that, and that's fine. Because they were juggling a lot of things, and what they did was still okay, but that's how I would have been more convinced about their relationship, if that makes sense. But yeah, I feel like I have talked way too long about Vegas and Pete, but that's just how I took it. And if you guys feel differently, let me know. But yeah, I feel like I should stop here now, or this is going to be way, way, way too long of an episode. So, generally, this was a very good drama. It's sensational in a lot of ways, and it did a lot of things right. So, thumbs up to the creators of this drama. And honestly, I would love to see a season 2, but I don't think it's happening. So I'll take what I get and just keep rewatching this as many times as I can, because it is really like it's fantastic in a lot of ways, right? But yeah, this has been my review of KinnPorsche. Very good. Highly recommend it if you've not seen it. It's hard to handle for a lot of people, and I understand that. So I mean, you gotta avoid this if you can't, take the more like nitty-gritty kind of dramas, like the dark ones, because it has a lot of elements that are there are a lot. So yeah, but for me, I really enjoyed it, and I'm waiting for what the next KinnPorsche will be. The next KinnPorsche drama that doesn't have to be created by the same company, but just that drama that's going to give me that vibe of just wow. I look forward to it. But yeah, this has been my review of KinnPorsche, the 2022 Thai BL. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. I'll see you again next week. Have a nice day. Bye.